The rain hammered against the metal roof of Marcus Webb's repair shop. It wasn't real rain, of course. Nothing on Port Zenith Station was real. The water came from recycled air systems, dripping through rusty pipes and cracked ceiling panels. Marcus didn't bother to fix the leaks anymore. He had bigger problems. He sat at his workbench, surrounded by broken machines and half-finished repairs. A mining drone lay in pieces before him. Its owner wanted it fixed by tomorrow, but Marcus wasn't sure he had the right parts. He wasn't sure he had any parts, actually. His supply shelves were nearly empty. The shop was cold. Marcus had turned down the heating to save money. His breath made small clouds in the air as he worked. Outside, through the grimy window, he could see the lower industrial district of the station. Flickering neon signs advertised cheap food and cheaper entertainment. Workers walked past with their heads down, heading home after long shifts in the factories. Marcus used to have a different life. 5 years ago, he was a lead engineer for the Colonial Transport Corporation. He designed engines for the big ships that carried humans to new worlds. He had a good salary, a nice apartment in the upper levels, and a future full of possibilities. Then came the accident. A coolant system failed on the CSS Prometheus. 3 workers died. The company needed someone to blame, and Marcus's supervisor had powerful friends. Marcus took the fall. He was fired, blacklisted, and left with nothing but his tools and his shame. Now he fixed junk for pennies in the worst part of the station. His landlord was threatening to throw him out. He'd eaten nothing but protein paste for 3 weeks, but he kept working because it was all he knew how to do. The door chimed. Marcus looked up, surprised. It was late, well past closing time. Who would come to his shop now? A small figure stood in the doorway. At first, Marcus thought it was a child in a strange costume. Then he realized it was a Valerian. The alien was small, maybe 3 feet tall, with smooth, chitinous skin that shimmered purple and green in the dim light. She had 4 arms and a delicate face with large, luminous eyes. But something was wrong. Valerians normally had 6 limbs, 4 arms and 2 legs. This child only had 4 working limbs. Her lower body was damaged. She was using makeshift crutches, pulling herself forward with great effort. Behind her came an older Valerian, bent with age. This one wore simple gray robes and carried a worn bag. She helped the child move inside, her face showing deep concern. "Please," the older Valerian said in heavily accented standard, "we need help. The child, she needs legs." Marcus stood up quickly. "I'm not a doctor. You should go to the medical center on level 15. "We tried," the old Valerian said. Her voice was tired. "They want payment first. We have no credits, no insurance. We went to 6 clinics. All said the same thing." The child looked up at Marcus. Her eyes were bright with intelligence and something else, a kind of quiet courage. She didn't cry or complain. She just watched him. "What happened?" Marcus asked. "An accident," the old Valerian said quickly. Too quickly. 3 months ago, heavy machinery. Her legs were crushed. The doctors saved her life, but the legs could not be saved. Marcus knew she was lying, or at least not telling the whole truth. But he also knew what it was like to be desperate. "I'm not a prosthetics specialist," he said. "I fix machines, not people." "But you are human," the child said suddenly. Her voice was high and musical. "Humans fix everything. Everyone says so. Humans make things work even when they should not work." Marcus almost smiled at that. It was true in a way. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy for being stubborn fixers. Other species built things properly or not at all. Humans took broken things and held them together with wire and hope. "What's your name?" he asked the child. "Liz," she said, "and this is Senna. She takes care of me." "I'm Marcus." He rubbed his face, thinking. This was a bad idea. He had no money, no proper materials, and no training in alien biology. But looking at the child's brave face, He couldn't say no. "I can try," he said finally. "But I can't promise anything. And I need to be honest. I'll have to use spare parts. It won't be fancy medical equipment." "Anything is better than this," Liz said, gesturing to her crutches. "I want to run again. I want to climb. I want to dance." "Let me look at what we're dealing with," Marcus said. He pulled over a stool and knelt down. Senna helped Liz sit, and Marcus examined where her legs should have been. The damage was old and healed, but extensive. The lower limbs were gone just below where knees would be on a human. The remaining segments were covered in scar tissue. Marcus took measurements, his engineer's mind already working on the problem. "Come back in 2 days," he said. "I need to do research. Valerian biology is different from human. I need to understand how your muscles and nerves work." "We can pay something," Senna said, reaching into her bag. "Not much, but—" "We'll talk about payment later," Marcus interrupted. He didn't want to see how little they had. It would make him feel worse. After they left, Marcus sat in his cold shop and wondered what he'd just agreed to. He pulled up his computer terminal and started searching through public databases. Valerian anatomy, nerve structures, muscle groups, balance requirements. The information was free but technical. He read for hours, making notes, sketching designs. Outside, the fake rain kept falling. The district grew quiet as even the late-shift workers went home. Marcus worked through the night, his empty stomach forgotten. For the first time in 5 years, he felt like he was doing something that mattered. He didn't know that this small act of kindness would change everything. He didn't know who Liz really was. He didn't know that powerful people were watching. He just knew that a child needed help, and he was going to try his best to give it. That was the human way after all. You helped because you could, not because you should. You fixed what was broken, even if everyone said it couldn't be done. You tried, even when you had nothing left to give. Marcus Webb, broke and forgotten in the lowest part of the station, was about to prove that human compassion was the most powerful force in the galaxy. Marcus spent 3 days just learning. He read everything he could find about Valerian biology. Their nervous system was distributed differently than humans, running through their chitinous shell in complex patterns. Their muscles worked on different principles, using hydraulic pressure as much as contraction. Even their sense of balance relied on organs humans didn't have. The more he learned, the more impossible the task seemed. Professional prosthetics for Valerians cost more than Marcus would earn in 10 years. They required bio-neural interfaces that had to be custom-grown. They needed rare materials and specialized fabrication equipment. Marcus didn't have any of that. What he had was a workshop full of junk and a stubborn human refusal to accept defeat. He started scavenging. The lower industrial district was full of garbage that might be treasure if you looked at it right. From a closed mining operation, he salvaged servo motors designed to handle extreme pressure. They were old and scratched, but they still worked. From the medical waste disposal, he found pressure sensors that hospitals threw away after one use. They were perfectly fine for what he needed. The hardest part was finding the right materials for the leg structure itself. It had to be light but strong, flexible but stable. Marcus spent 2 days searching salvage yards before he found what he needed. Composite materials from a scrapped shuttle. The same stuff that protected spacecraft from micrometeorites would make excellent exoskeleton support. Liz came to visit every few days. Senna would bring her in the evening, always checking the corridors first, always seeming nervous. The old Valerian never explained why, and Marcus didn't ask. He figured they were hiding from debt collectors or immigration officials. Everyone in the lower district was running from something. Liz would sit on a stool and watch Marcus work. She asked endless questions. "Why do humans build things this way?" she asked one evening, watching Marcus solder circuit connections. "What way?" Marcus replied, not looking up from his work. "With so many separate parts. Valerian technology grows as one piece. It is more elegant." "Maybe," Marcus admitted. "But if one part of your elegant device breaks, the whole thing is useless. With separate parts, you can replace what breaks. You can upgrade, you can improvise." "Improvise," Liz repeated the word carefully. "That means to make things work without a plan?" "More like making a new plan when the old plan fails," Marcus explained. He held up a servo motor. "See this? It was designed to crush rocks in a mine. I'm using it to help you walk. That's improvisation." Liz's eyes seemed to glow brighter. "Humans are very clever. Humans are very stubborn," Marcus corrected with a smile. "We don't like admitting something can't be done." Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus barely slept. He worked through nights, surviving on cheap caffeine pills and the protein paste he couldn't afford to replace. His landlord came by twice demanding rent. Marcus promised to pay soon, knowing he was lying. The exo-legs slowly took shape. They were beautiful in their own way, a mix of salvaged technology and human determination. The frame was lightweight composite, shaped to match Valerian anatomy. The servo motors provided movement. Controlled by a simple computer brain, Marcus programmed himself. The pressure sensors would detect Liz's muscle movements and translate them into motion. The hardest problem was the interface. Medical-grade neural jacks would require surgery and equipment Marcus didn't have. He needed another way to let Liz control the legs naturally. He thought about the problem for 3 days. Then inspiration hit him while he was watching a maintenance worker adjust pressure valves. Pressure. That was the answer. He designed a sleeve system that would fit over Liz's remaining leg segments. The sleeves contained hundreds of tiny pressure sensors that could detect the slightest muscle movement. When Liz tried to move her legs, her muscles would flex. The sensors would read those flexes and tell the mechanical legs what to do. It wasn't perfect. It wouldn't be as responsive as a direct neural connection. But it would work without cutting into Liz's body. It was safe, removable, and could be adjusted as she grew. Marcus fabricated the sleeves from medical-grade synthetic skin he'd been saving for another project. He calibrated each sensor by hand, testing them thousands of times. His eyes burned from staring at tiny components. His hands cramped from delicate work. But he kept going. Finally, after 3 weeks, the exo-legs were ready. They didn't look like factory-made prosthetics. They were clearly handmade, with visible joints and exposed mechanisms. But Marcus thought they were beautiful. They represented everything humans were good at, taking broken things and making them work again. When Liz came for her next visit, Marcus had everything prepared. Senna looked worried, as always. The old Valerian had grown thinner over the past weeks, Marcus noticed. He wondered if they were eating properly. "Are they finished?" Liz asked, her voice full of hope and fear. "They're finished," Marcus confirmed. "But I need to warn you, this is going to take practice. Learning to use them will be hard. You might fall, you might get frustrated, but if you keep trying, I think they'll work." "I'm not afraid of hard work," Liz said firmly. "Show me." Marcus helped her put on the sleeves first. They fit snugly over her remaining leg segments, the sensors pressing gently against her chitin. Then he attached the mechanical legs. They locked into place with soft clicks. "Okay," Marcus said. "Try to stand like you're standing on your real legs. Just think about it normally." Liz closed her eyes, concentrating. The motors hummed softly. The mechanical legs twitched, jerked, then suddenly locked into position. Liz opened her eyes in surprise. She was standing. "I'm standing," she whispered. "Senna, look, I'm standing." Senna made a sound that might have been crying. Valerians didn't cry with water like humans, but their emotion was clear. "Now try to take a step," Marcus encouraged. "Just one. Think about walking normally." Liz shifted her weight. The left leg moved forward smoothly. She nearly fell, but Marcus caught her. She tried again. This time, the right leg followed. She took one step, then another. Her movements were jerky and uncertain, but she was walking. By the end of the hour, Liz could walk across the workshop without help. She was slow and unsteady, but she was mobile. The joy on her face made every sleepless night worth it. "This is amazing," she said, her voice full of wonder. "You made these from spare parts? From garbage?" "One person's garbage is another person's solution," Marcus said. He felt tired, but satisfied. "You'll need to practice every day. Come back next week and I'll make adjustments." Senna tried to pay him. She pulled out a small chip containing what Marcus guessed was all the money they had. "No," he said firmly. "Keep it. You need it more than I do." "But you worked so hard," Senna protested. "This is not right. You must be paid." "No kid should have to crawl," Marcus said simply. "That's payment enough." As they left, Liz walking carefully on her new legs, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. He felt useful. He felt like his skills mattered. He felt human. He didn't know that his workshop was being watched. He didn't know that Senna had reported everything to someone far away. He didn't know that his simple act of kindness had reached the ears of the most powerful being in the Valerian sovereignty. All he knew was that he'd helped a child walk again, and for now that was enough. Marcus slept well that night for the first time in weeks. His shop was still cold, his shelves still empty, and his landlord still angry. But he had helped someone. That counted for something. He woke to the sound of breaking glass. At first, he thought he was dreaming. Then he heard heavy footsteps in his workshop below his small apartment. Marcus rolled out of bed, his heart racing. Thieves? The lower district had plenty of those, but what could anyone steal from his shop? He had nothing valuable. He grabbed a heavy wrench and crept to the stairs. Below, in the dim emergency lighting, he could see figures moving. They weren't ordinary thieves. They wore armor, sleek, dark, and clearly expensive. Their movements were professional, coordinated. Marcus's blood went cold. These weren't criminals. They were soldiers. He watched as they tore through his workshop. They opened every drawer, scanned every computer file, checked every corner. They were looking for something specific, or someone. One of them spoke in a language Marcus didn't understand. Then another replied in standard, "No sign of the target, but this is definitely the location." Marcus didn't wait to hear more. He backed up silently, grabbed his jacket and personal data chip, and climbed out the small window of his apartment. The fire escape was rusty and complained loudly as he descended, but the intruders were making enough noise that they didn't hear him. He ran through the wet streets of the lower district, his breath coming in gasps. His mind raced even faster than his feet. Who were those soldiers? What target were they talking about? The only unusual thing that had happened recently was Liz. Liz. Marcus felt sick. Had he put that child in danger? Was she the target? But why would armed soldiers be looking for a disabled Valerian child? He kept running until his legs burned and his chest hurt. Finally, he hid in a maintenance alcove and tried to think. He needed to contact Senna, to warn them. But he had no way to reach them. They had never given him contact information. After an hour of hiding, Marcus carefully made his way to a public terminal. He checked the station news feeds. Nothing about raids in the lower district, nothing about missing children. He tried to access his workshop's security cameras remotely, but they had been disabled. Someone grabbed his shoulder. Marcus spun around, raising his wrench. A woman in a blue uniform held up her hands. "Easy," she said. "I'm Detective Reeves, station security. You're Marcus Webb?" "Yes," Marcus said warily. "What's going on? My shop was broken into—" "I know," Reeves interrupted. "That's why I'm here. You need to come with me, now. It's not safe for you on the open levels." Reeves led him to a security office in a neutral sector of the station. She locked the door and activated a privacy field. Then she turned to Marcus with an expression of disbelief and pity. "What did you do?" she asked. "What do you mean?" There's a warrant for your arrest issued by the Valerian High Command. Something about unlawful biological modification of a protected individual. Do you have any idea how serious this is? Marcus felt the world tilt. I just helped a child. I made her prosthetic legs. That's not illegal. It is if the child is Valerian royalty, Reeves said flatly. The words didn't make sense at first. Then slowly the pieces started to fit together. Liss. Senna's nervousness. The way they checked corridors. The vague story about an accident. Liss is royalty? Marcus whispered. Liss, Reeves said, is the youngest daughter of Empress Vashara. You know who that is, right? Everyone knew who Empress Vashara was. The absolute ruler of the Valerian sovereignty. One of the most powerful beings in the known galaxy. She controlled a third of civilized space. Her military was second only to the Galactic Council itself. She was also known for her ruthlessness. Stories told of entire planets punished for minor rebellions, of officials executed for small failures, of a leader who trusted no one and showed mercy to no one. Oh God, Marcus said, sitting down heavily. I performed medical procedures on the Empress's daughter. Without authorization, Reeves added, using improvised equipment in an unlicensed facility. She needed help. They said no one would treat her without payment. Because she was in hiding, Reeves explained. 3 months ago, there was an assassination attempt during a state ceremony. Liss was injured. The Empress went, well, she killed everyone even remotely connected to the plot. Then she hid her daughter, moving her between stations under false identities. She's been paranoid, trusting no one. Senna? Marcus asked. Her most loyal servant. She'd die before betraying the Empress. Marcus put his head in his hands. So what happens now? Do I go to prison? Do they execute me? I don't know, Reeves admitted. The Valerian sovereignty has its own laws. Technically, you're under Galactic Council jurisdiction here on the station. But if they want you badly enough, politics won't save you. I was just trying to help, Marcus said quietly. I know, Reeves said. Her voice softened. For what it's worth, I think what you did was good. But good doesn't always matter in galactic politics. Before Marcus could respond, the lights in the office flickered. Then they turned red. An alarm sounded, not the station's normal alarms, but something deeper, more ominous. Reeves checked her terminal. Her face went pale. Oh no. What? Valerian Imperial Fleet just entered the sector. 3 dreadnoughts and a dozen support ships. They're taking position around the station. Marcus looked out the office window. In the distance, visible against the stars, massive ships were appearing. They were beautiful and terrible, their hulls decorated with luminescent patterns that looked almost organic. One ship alone could destroy the station. There were 16 of them. Why are they here? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. For you, Reeves said. Station Command is receiving demands for your immediate surrender. An hour later, Marcus stood in a docking bay surrounded by station security. Outside, a Valerian transport ship was landing. Its design was sleek and elegant, covered in flowing patterns that seemed to move in the light. The airlock opened. Valerian Imperial Guards emerged, tall, armored, and intimidating. Behind them came a figure Marcus recognized. Senna. The old Valerian looked exhausted and sad. I'm sorry, she said to Marcus. I had no choice. When you helped the little one, I had to report it. The Empress had to know someone had touched her daughter. Where's Liss? Marcus asked. Safe, happy. She walks every day with your gift. Senna's voice cracked. She speaks of you constantly, of the kind human who helped her when no one else would. The guards took Marcus's arms. They weren't rough, but their grip was firm. He was being arrested, taken into custody of a foreign power for helping a child walk. As they led him toward the transport, Marcus looked back at Port Zenith Station, at the lower industrial district where his destroyed shop waited, at the life he'd built from nothing and would now lose. He wondered if he would have acted differently if he'd known who Liz really was. And he realized the answer was no. She had been a child who needed help. That was all that mattered. The transport lifted off, carrying Marcus away from everything he knew. Ahead, in the darkness of space, waited the Empress's flagship. And somewhere on that ship, his fate would be decided. The Valerian flagship was called the Eternal Bloom. It was larger than any human ship Marcus had ever seen, more than 2 miles long and filled with technology that seemed to blend nature and machine. The corridors looked like they had been grown rather than built. With walls that glowed softly with bioluminescence, the air smelled of flowers Marcus couldn't name. The guards took him to a suite of rooms that was nicer than anywhere Marcus had lived in his entire life. The furniture was elegant, clearly expensive. A viewport showed the vast expanse of space and the other ships of the fleet. Food and water were provided, real food, not the protein paste Marcus was used to. It was all very comfortable. It was also very clearly a prison. The door wouldn't open for him. His personal data chip had been taken. He had no way to communicate with anyone. He was alone with his thoughts and his fear. 2 days passed. Marcus tried to stay calm. He exercised in the small space. He ate the food they provided, though his stomach was in knots. He stared out at the stars and wondered if he would ever see Earth again. He had never been to humanity's homeworld, but he'd always planned to go someday. Now he probably never would. On the 3rd day, Senna came to visit. The old Valerian looked even more tired than before. "How are they treating you?" she asked. "Well enough," Marcus said. "I'm not being tortured, if that's what you're asking. But no one will tell me what's happening. Am I going to trial? Am I going to be executed? What?" Senna made a gesture that might have been the Valerian equivalent of a sigh. "The Empress is trying to decide. This situation is complicated." "Complicated how? I broke your laws. Don't you people just punish lawbreakers?" "Normally, yes," Senna said. She sat down, her movements slow and careful. "But you also saved the princess. You helped her when every legitimate clinic refused. You asked for nothing in return. This confuses Her Majesty." "Why would kindness confuse her?" "Because Valerians do not understand kindness without purpose," Senna explained. "Our culture is based on transaction. Every favor must be repaid. Every debt must be balanced. Every action has a reason tied to benefit. You helped the princess expecting no payment, no advantage, no future favor. This is alien to us. Her Majesty does not know how to categorize such behavior." Marcus laughed bitterly. "So I might die because you people can't understand doing something nice?" "Perhaps," Senna said honestly. "Or perhaps you will live because of it. The Empress has never encountered a human like you before." On the 4th day, the guards came for him. They dressed him in formal clothes, not Valerian style, but expensive human fashion that fit perfectly. Then they led him through the ship's corridors. Marcus saw other Valerians watching him with curious eyes. Some looked hostile. Others seemed merely interested. He was a human on the Empress's flagship, probably the first one to ever be here under these circumstances. They brought him to a massive set of doors decorated with intricate patterns that seemed to tell a story. The guards checked him for weapons, then pushed the doors open. The throne room was enormous. The ceiling was so high Marcus couldn't see it clearly, lost in shadows and floating lights. The walls were covered in living plants that glowed in different colors. Dozens of Valerian nobles and officials stood in ranks on either side, all watching him. At the far end of the room, on a throne that looked grown from a single piece of wood, sat Empress Vashara. She was terrifying, larger than any Valerian Marcus had seen, nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 arms adorned with ceremonial blades. Her chiton was deep blue with patterns of gold. Her compound eyes reflected the room's light in a way that made them seem to glow. She radiated power and authority. The guards led Marcus forward. He walked down the center of the room, feeling every eye on him. When he reached the base of the throne platform, the guards pushed him to his knees. "You are Marcus Webb," the Empress said. Her voice was surprisingly beautiful, musical even. Human, former engineer, now a repair worker in the lower districts of Port Zenith Station. "Yes, Your Majesty," Marcus said. He kept his eyes down, not sure if looking at her was allowed. "You performed medical modifications on a member of the Imperial bloodline without authorization. This is a capital crime under Valerian law." "Yes, Your Majesty." "Look at me, human." Marcus raised his eyes. The Empress studied him with an expression he couldn't read. Silence stretched through the throne room. No one moved. No one spoke. Then a side door opened. Liz came running in, moving quickly on her mechanical legs. She had gotten much better at using them. She ran right up to Marcus, chirping excitedly in Valerian. "Liz," the Empress said firmly, "return to your place." "But Mother, this is him. This is Marcus, the one who helped me." The throne room gasped. The princess had just contradicted the Empress in public. This apparently never happened. But the Empress just made a gesture, and Liz reluctantly moved to stand beside the throne. She kept looking at Marcus with her bright, grateful eyes. The Empress stood up. All 4 of her hands moved in a complex gesture. "Marcus Webb, I have studied your work. My medical officers have examined the prosthetics you created for my daughter. They report that while crude by our standards, they show remarkable innovation. The pressure interface system is particularly interesting." Marcus wasn't sure if he should respond. He stayed quiet. "The chief medical officer says your design is actually superior to our neural jacks for certain applications. It is less invasive. There is no risk of rejection. It can adapt to individuals with nerve damage. It is, in her words, a perfect example of human improvisation." The Empress descended from her throne, walking toward Marcus. He fought the urge to back away. "But what I wish to understand," she continued, "is this. Why did you help her? You knew she could not pay. You must have suspected she was hiding from something. What did you hope to gain?" This was it. His answer would determine if he lived or died. Marcus thought about lying, about saying something diplomatic. But he was tired of being afraid, tired of politics, tired of pretending. "I didn't hope to gain anything," he said honestly. "She was a kid who needed help. That was enough reason." The throne room fell absolutely silent. Even the bioluminescent plants seemed to dim. The Empress stared at him with those unreadable compound eyes. "You expect me to believe," she said slowly, "that you worked for 3 weeks, used your own resources, gave away your time and skill, expecting absolutely nothing in return?" "Yes," Marcus said simply. "Why?" "Because that's what you do. When someone needs help and you can give it, you help. It's not complicated." The Empress turned away from him, pacing. Her guards looked nervous. Marcus had apparently said something very wrong, or very right. He couldn't tell which. Finally, the Empress turned back to him. When she spoke, her voice carried through the entire throne room. "By Valerian law, Marcus Webb has committed a crime against the Imperial bloodline. The penalty is death." She paused. "However, by Valerian law, Marcus Webb has also provided essential medical aid to a member of the Imperial bloodline. The reward is a debt of honor." Marcus's heart pounded. He had no idea what this meant. "These 2 facts create perfect balance," the Empress continued. "His crime is balanced by his service. His debt to the Empire is balanced by the Empire's debt to him. Under Valerian law, the account is settled." Relief flooded through Marcus. He wasn't going to die. "However," the Empress said, and Marcus's relief vanished. There is still the matter of the innovation itself. Your improvised prosthetics represent technology that could benefit many people across many species. This innovation has value, and value must be acknowledged. She made a gesture, and one of her officials stepped forward carrying a document. I offer you a position, Marcus Webb, Chief of Human Xenological Medical Engineering for the Valerian Sovereignty. You will have full research facilities, unlimited resources, and the task of adapting human improvisational techniques for use across all species. You will help us learn what humans know instinctively, how to make things work when they should not work. Marcus stared at her. This was the last thing he'd expected. A job? Working for the Empress? Marcus stood in the throne room, his mind racing, a position working for the Valerian sovereignty, resources, facilities, everything he'd lost 5 years ago and more. It sounded like a dream. But he'd learned the hard way that dreams often had hidden costs. What would you want in return? Marcus asked carefully. The Empress tilted her head, an oddly human gesture. I have just explained your work, your innovations, your human perspective on solving impossible problems. And who would own what I create? Who would control how it's used? Several of the nobles in the throne room made clicking sounds that might have been disapproval. Apparently, questioning the Empress was not normal, but Vashara just raised one hand, silencing them. Continue, she said to Marcus. I worked for a corporation once, Marcus said. His voice was steady, though his hands trembled slightly. I created things to help people, colony ships, life support systems, things that mattered, but the corporation only cared about profit. When something went wrong, they blamed me to protect their reputation. They took everything I had. He took a breath and met the Empress's eyes directly. I won't let that happen again. If I work for you, I need guarantees. I need to know that what I create will actually help people, not become weapons or political tools. The throne room erupted in clicks and chittering. The nobles were clearly shocked by his boldness. The guards stepped closer, hands moving toward their weapons. But the Empress was smiling. At least Marcus thought she was smiling. It was hard to tell with Valerian faces. You dare make demands of me? She asked. Her voice was amused rather than angry. In my own throne room, surrounded by my guards, when I have just spared your life? I'm not demanding, Marcus said. I'm negotiating. You said value must be acknowledged. Well, my value is in my integrity. I help people because it's right, not because it's profitable. If you want that quality in your engineer, then you have to accept that I'll stand by my principles. Liz suddenly spoke up. Mother, this is what I told you about. This is the human way. He helps because he can, not because he must. That's why his work is special. The Empress looked at her daughter, then back at Marcus. The throne room was absolutely silent. Very well, Vashara said finally. State your terms, Marcus Webb. Marcus had maybe 30 seconds before the Empress changed her mind. He had to make this count. First, anything I develop must be made available to all species, he said. Not just Valerians, not just your allies, everyone, rich or poor. No one should suffer because they can't afford help. That would make poor business, one of the nobles objected. I don't care about business, Marcus shot back. I care about the kid who can't walk, the worker who lost an arm, the soldier who lost their sight. They all deserve help, regardless of who they are or what they can pay. The Empress made a gesture, and the noble fell silent. Continue. Second, I won't develop weapons. I won't create anything designed to hurt people. If you want someone to make better guns, find another engineer. We have many weapons engineers, the Empress said. That is not why I want you. Third, I need independence. I'll work with your scientists and doctors, but I won't take orders that conflict with my judgment. If I think something is unsafe or wrong, I need the freedom to say no. You ask for much, the Empress observed. I offer much in return, Marcus replied. You said it yourself. Humans know how to make things work when they shouldn't. But that ability comes from our values, our stubbornness, our refusal to accept that some problems can't be solved. If you want human innovation, you have to accept human principles. The Empress paced again, her forearms moving in complex patterns. Marcus realized she was thinking deeply. Finally, she turned to him. You are either very brave or very foolish, Marcus Webb. Perhaps both. She gestured to her official. Add his terms to the contract. All innovations to be made freely available. No weapons development. Independence in medical decisions. Is this acceptable to you? Marcus blinked. She'd actually agreed. Just like that? Yes, he managed to say. That's acceptable. Then we have an agreement. The Empress made a formal gesture. You will begin immediately. Quarters will be prepared for you. You will have a laboratory, assistants, and whatever resources you require. She paused, then added something that might have been personal rather than official. Do you know why I agreed to your terms? No, Your Majesty. Because in 3,000 years of Valerian history, no one has ever made demands of an empress and survived. Yet you did so not for personal gain, but to protect others. You were willing to die for your principles. Her compound eyes seemed to glow. That is a kind of power we Valerians have forgotten. The power of compassion without transaction, of help without debt, of doing what is right simply because it is right. She turned to address the entire throne room. The human species has been dismissed by many in the galaxy as reckless and primitive, but they possess something we lack. They see a problem, and they fix it. They see suffering, and they ease it. They do this not because they must, but because they can. This is not weakness. This is strength. Liz ran over to Marcus again, this time wrapping her small arms around him in a hug. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for everything. Marcus hugged her back, feeling tears in his eyes. A week ago, he'd been a broke mechanic facing eviction. Now he was in the throne room of an alien empress, about to change how the galaxy thought about medicine and technology. There is one more thing, the Empress said. You will need an assistant who understands both human and Valerian ways, someone who can help translate not just language, but culture. Senna stepped forward. I volunteer for this role, Your Majesty. The Empress nodded, approved. Senna will remain with you as cultural liaison and advisor. She has cared for my daughter faithfully. Now she will help you spread your human compassion to others who need it. Over the following months, Marcus's laboratory became the most unusual place in the Valerian sovereignty. He worked with Valerian doctors, Saurian engineers, and scientists from a dozen species. His team developed prosthetics that anyone could afford. They created medical devices using improvised techniques. They proved that expensive didn't always mean better. Word spread throughout the galaxy. The human who made the impossible possible. The engineer who cared more about patients than profits. Other species started sending representatives to study his methods. Marcus taught them what he knew, but he also learned. He discovered that every species had their own kinds of improvisation. Saurians were brilliant at biological solutions. Terrellians excelled at energy systems. Valerians understood growth and adaptation in ways humans never had. Together they created something new, a medical philosophy that combined the best of every species. They called it the Open Hand Initiative, healing available to all who needed it. Liz visited often. She grew stronger and faster on her mechanical legs. Eventually she asked Marcus to modify them for running, then for climbing. She became the fastest young Valerian in the Empire, competing in races and winning medals. One day, a year after their first meeting, she asked Marcus a question. Do you miss your old life, your shop on the station? Marcus thought about it. His cold shop with its empty shelves and broken machines, his loneliness and poverty, his slow decline into nothing. No, he said honestly. But I miss the simplicity. Back then, the choice was easy. Help or don't help. Now everything is complicated. Politics, resources, priorities. But you're still helping, Liz pointed out. You're just helping more people. She was right, of course. In his first year with the Valerian sovereignty, Marcus's designs had helped more than 10,000 people across dozens of worlds. Children who couldn't walk, workers who'd been injured, soldiers from all sides of various conflicts who needed care. He'd also trained 40 engineers from different species in his methods. They would spread his techniques even further. The impact would grow exponentially. And it had all started because one cold evening, in a failing repair shop, a broke mechanic had decided to help a child who needed legs. The Empress summoned him one day to her private office. It was less formal than the throne room, though no less impressive. I have been thinking about our first conversation, she said, when I asked why you helped Liz, and you said it was enough that she needed help. I remember, Marcus said. I did not believe you then. I thought you must have some hidden motive, some plan. That is how Valerians think, how most species think. She paused. But I have watched you for a year now. I have seen you refuse profitable contracts because they would limit access to your innovations. I have seen you work unpaid to help individuals who could never repay you. And I finally understand. Understand what, Your Majesty? That you were telling the truth. You help because you can. This is the human gift to the galaxy, not your technology or your aggression, but your compassion, your refusal to accept suffering when you have the power to reduce it. She made a formal gesture. Thank you, Marcus Webb. Thank you for teaching an old empress that some things cannot be measured in debt or profit. You have changed not just my daughter's life, but our entire culture's understanding of what it means to help others. Marcus smiled. I was just being human, Your Majesty. Exactly, the Empress said. And the galaxy is better for it. As Marcus left the office, he passed a viewport showing the vast emptiness of space. Out there were billions of people living their lives. Some were suffering, some needed help. And now, thanks to one act of kindness in a cold repair shop, there was a little more hope in the galaxy. Marcus Webb, the impoverished mechanic who'd once had nothing, had proven that the greatest wealth was not in credits or power. It was in the simple choice to help someone in need. That was the human way. That was what made humanity special. And in the end, that was enough.